Welcome to this video lecture from the textbook Understanding Project Management, a Practical Guide, 3rd edition, Chapter 1, Understanding the Project Environment. A note about the PowerPoint slides that you will be seeing. They cover each chapter of the course textbook, which is, again, Understanding Project Management, a Practical Guide. The slides themselves provide a high-level overview of the key concepts, but they do not cover each topic in as much depth as the textbook does. So it is expected that the appropriate readings are completed before each class and that notes are taken during class based on the lecture and class discussions. Some key symbols that will be seen throughout the PowerPoint slide decks as well as in the textbook. This is an example or a symbol, which is an example of a key concept or theory. So you will see this symbol appear. This symbol is the next installment of the ongoing case study that you will see in just a few minutes. This symbol is where an important summary concept or idea is about to be presented. Key terminology, usually at the end of each chapter and at the end of each PowerPoint slide deck, is this symbol. And where there are questions for further discussion and exploration, we will see this symbol. Now, on to the textbook case study. The course will follow, and textbook follows, an ongoing case study project from its initiation to completion. And it is through this case study that the key points are demonstrated. This project involves the product launch of a new mobile device app. During each week's lesson, the new concepts covered will be demonstrated in the case study. And here is an introduction to the case study.
Deco Productions is a medium-sized software company located in the Midwest that employs more than 300 people. Casey Serador founded the company in 2012. As an avid photographer, Casey guides the company in the development of software related to photography and video production. The company name was inspired by Casey's interest in the Art Deco period. She was drawn to the streamlined forms and smooth lines inherent in the period and looks to instill this modern elegance into the culture and products of her company. Additionally, the Art Deco period's focus on technological and social progress is a priority shared by Deco Productions. The company's goal is simple: to provide industry-leading, quality products and services to its customers. This best-in-class strategy requires a culture of constant innovation with frequent product updates in order to stay ahead of the competition. Deco Productions promotes an open and collaborative environment. Work hours are flexible, and many employees spend time both in the office and working from home. The office has an open concept design with a few private rooms reserved for customer meetings and private conversations. Casey's philosophy is that people make better decisions when they have a stake in the outcomes of the organization. This is accomplished through an employee profit-sharing program. She also believes that the people closest to the work are best able to understand how the work should be performed. Employees and teams are empowered to modify their own processes in order to improve the company's performance. Virtual town hall meetings, where Casey and her management team describe the company's recent progress and upcoming challenges, are held on a monthly basis. Employees have the opportunity to ask questions and provide ideas. There are numerous instances of ideas raised during the meeting that were subsequently implemented to the benefit of the company. Deco Productions develops camera and video software for the following markets: consumers, mobile applications, camera manufacturers, and video camera manufacturers. One of Deco Productions' software products is DecoCam. DecoCam is an industry-leading software application for the mobile device market. Consumers are able to purchase and download the product to their mobile devices. The product employs state-of-the-art technology to produce digital pictures with superior color and clarity. a new version of DecoCam, version 4, has been proposed. This version would introduce a new feature known as the Photo Assistant. This feature would perform as follows. Before taking a picture, the user has the option of selecting the Photo Assistant. The user is prompted to take a short video of up to 10 seconds of the immediate surroundings. The Photo Assistant analyzes the video and recommends an optimal setting in terms of the direction, angle, and content of the picture. While the initial cost estimate to create this feature is high, it is expected that the Photo Assistant will be popular with consumers and help ensure DecoCam maintains its position as a market leader. Though this initiative has not yet been approved, many in the organization are hopeful that the project will commence shortly.
Okay, so that is the introduction to the ongoing case study, and there will be segments throughout all of the remaining chapters of the textbook. So the main topics to be covered during chapter 1 are the following: the definitions, project and project management, the history of project management approaches, discussion of the different project life cycles, the definition of project stakeholders, a key concept, project constraints, programs and portfolios, and finally, a discussion of the Project Management Institute and the PMBOK guide. So let's go through each of these topics one by one. First of all, what defines a project? Well, there are many characteristics of projects. Two that differentiate this type of work, two characteristics, is that projects are temporary, that is, they start and end, and they produce something unique. The Project Management Institute defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Now, what other type of work do organizations do? Well, there are two main types. There are projects that we just defined as being temporary and unique, and the rest of the work that an organization may do may be grouped into what is termed as the operations of the organization. And the characteristics of operations is the opposite of projects. That is, instead of being temporary, operations are ongoing. They continue as long as the organization is in business. And instead of endeavoring to create something unique, the idea of operations is to create consistent and identical output. So types of the examples of operational areas might be the production, the production line, the factory, functions such as finance or human resources. Those are examples of operations areas or operational areas. So key idea, operations is the area responsible for the ongoing creation of the goods and services of an organization. Now that brings us to the definition of project management. Now, project management was originally devised to promote an orderly progression from the start to the end of the project to increase the likely success of projects. It uses various processes and documents. So again, the Project Management Institute defines project management as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. Now, a short history of project management, how and when did this come into being? Well, we can trace its origins back to ancient civilizations and projects and so on. So, for example, the pyramids, the aqueducts in Rome, and many other ancient structures and facilities would have required some level of organization and what we would think of as project management to achieve them. In the early 20th century, industrialization brought about the need for more systematic project management approaches. During this time, Henry Gantt introduced the Gantt chart, which is a project schedule and scheduling tool. During World War II, project management processes were further refined. Famously, the Manhattan Project employed many of the tools and processes which are commonly used in project management today. The Project Management Institute, or PMI, was established in 1969 with the first edition of the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or referred to as the PMBOK Guide, published in 1996. During this time period, so generally in the 90s and as well as late 80s, alternative approaches, collectively now referred to as agile, were developed. Which brings us to various project management approaches that may be used. Project management is not just one thing, but there are different categories of project management, and they may be broadly grouped into the following three categories. There is waterfall project management, which a good deal of this course is focused on waterfall project management. There's also the use of agile, um, referred to as agile project management or agile delivery, which employs agile techniques. This will be looked at later in the course. And then there's the combination of the two, of some waterfall and some agile, referred to as hybrid projects or hybrid project management. So first of all, waterfall project management. This is an approach where the project plan is developed in detail and then subsequently followed for the remainder of the project. So you can see in the figure 1.2 from the textbook, we have create the plan followed by execute the plan. This is useful for many projects where the requirements are well understood and unlikely to change. The technology is stable or the duration of the project is short. For projects of these types, and there are many projects where this is completely appropriate, this is a very useful approach. Agile project management is an approach in which the output is developed in iterations and delivered in frequent increments. And you can see the figure 1.3 from the textbook, which shows the circular nature. Often agile is demonstrated in a circle or a loop, which, as you can see in this loop, plan, build, test, review, and deployed repeats over and over. These are the iterations that we're referring to. This is useful for projects where the output of the project is difficult to define. It's more difficult to do the planning up front due to the changing consumer tastes, market conditions, or advances in technology. It was originally developed for and often used for systems development projects, but is not limited to software. And then hybrid project management, this is a combination of waterfall and agile project management, where organizations attempt to use portions of each or in effect to achieve the best of both worlds. And you can see it's the overlap between waterfall and agile within the graphic on the right side. Some possible examples using waterfall within an organization, using waterfall for some projects and agile for others. That would be a hybrid environment. Or another example would be to integrate elements from the agile approaches into a waterfall project, or vice versa, to integrate some waterfall elements into an agile delivery project. Okay, so this is hybrid project management. This brings us to the concept of the project lifecycle, or PLC. This is often referred to, especially in, or particularly in waterfall projects. Before getting into the PLC, let's talk about the process to create something new. Remember, that's what a project is creating something new or unique. The first step is to define the overall parameters. What's our mission? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? Our goals and objectives, our overall budget, the timeline. When do we need this by? Those are the overall parameters. And you can see the orange box this at the bottom. This is referred to as the initiating phase. Second step is to plan for the details of the work. Once you know what the overall parameters is, the next step is to start to define how this would be done. But do the work in a plan mode. It's done on paper or in electronic files, but the actual output is not created yet. We are in a planning mode. We're inventing it in our mind or the collective minds of those working on the project. That's referred to as the planning phase. Step 3 is to, well, once the planning is complete, to actually produce the product, service, or result. So whatever the plans defined in the third step is to actually create those things. And that's referred to, you can see the green box, the executing phase. And then finally, the last step is to end the project, check the results against the original parameters. So to, in effect, see how we did. These 4 steps, these 4 boxes separated by arrows, is what is referred to as the project life cycle, showing the types of work. Each phase defines the type of work that is done at each point in the project as it moves from start to end. So key idea, the project life cycle, or PLC, consists of the following 4 phases: initiating, planning, executing, and closing. Now, there are different types of project life cycles. So if we take the idea of life cycles and combine that with the different types of project management, we can see that there are different types of project life cycles. So let's look at this in this 2x2 matrix. So on the horizontal axis, we have the frequency of change. So projects can have a low frequency of change. Those would be projects that are well defined, that we know what the requirements are and they're unlikely to change. Or we can have a high frequency of change potentially. Those are projects where we have difficulty defining the requirements. Maybe we don't know exactly what we want until we start working on it. That would be a high potential for change. On the vertical axis, we have the desired frequency of delivery. For some projects, it's all at the end. So it's one kind of a big bang at the end. That would be a low frequency of delivery. For other types of projects, there is a desire for incremental delivery, so frequent deliveries. So that would be a high frequency of delivery. So if we look at each combination, we can start to look at the types of project life cycles. So for example, a predictive life cycle is one which follows a sequential approach in which the planning is completed prior to the completion of the project's output. And we can see that that's most appropriate and most effective situations when you have a relatively low frequency of change, likely, and a relatively low frequency of delivery. Waterfall project management uses a predictive life cycle within it. Let's look at an example where we have what's known as an iterative life cycle, which consists of repeating cycles of planning followed by the creation of the output. Okay, so we have planning that is iterative and repeats over and over and over and eventually then creates the output. This is an appropriate approach where we have a higher or a high frequency of change anticipated. Maybe we are less able to define our desired output up front. But there is, again, a low frequency of delivery anticipated. So it's delivered at the end. So this would be where an iterative life cycle would be most appropriate. This would be an example of hybrid project management when you're, modifying the waterfall project management or the predictive life cycle. So this would be when venturing into hybrid project management. Okay, the upper left is the incremental life cycle, which involves breaking a project into small manageable parts that are provided in successive deliveries. Okay, so it's basically just taking a project and dividing it up into smaller parts where the planning may be done up front, but then the deliverables are moved out at various points. And again, this may be uh, most appropriate when you have a lower frequency of change anticipated, but a higher need for frequency of delivery. This is where you use an incremental life cycle. And this is another example of a type of hybrid project management. And finally, we have the agile life cycle, which is both iterative and incremental, and suited for projects with evolving requirements and when delivery of each increment is desired. So frequent delivery. And this is most appropriate where we have a high frequency of change anticipated and a higher frequency of delivery required. And so this would use the agile life cycle would make sense and would be within agile project management. So this gives a little idea of the different types of project life cycles and how they relate to the different approaches to managing projects. Key concept is the definition of what a project stakeholder is. So as you can see by the key idea at the bottom of the screen, project stakeholders are individuals, groups, and organizations that are involved in or impacted by a project. So it is any one or any group or any organization that has some involvement. They're either involved or are somehow impacted by the project. There can be many potential stakeholders for a project. There can be the project team itself. There can be the management of the organization, customers, suppliers. There can be legal entities such as government or standards organizations and so on. So there's many different stakeholders, and one of the key requirements or one of the key planning imperatives is to identify project stakeholders and to manage them effectively. This will come in a later chapter. One of the key project stakeholder is a role called the project sponsor. The project sponsor is a key stakeholder that should be present on every project. The role of the project sponsor is really twofold. The project sponsor is the primarily involved in the definition of what is required by the project in terms of its overall mission, its goals and objectives. The project sponsor provides the funding or the budget for the project. And this role is primarily involved in the overall direction of the project. It's key to note that the project sponsor is not the project manager, does not directly manage the project, but is the person who the project is being performed on behalf of. So has that oversight role that will come into play at various points during the project. Now, sometimes there's projects where there is a project sponsor and other projects where there is a customer. And is this the same role? And the answer is it really depends. For some projects, oftentimes the project sponsor is a person who is internal in the same organization as the project and is the one providing the funding, and the customers are really the end recipients of the output that will occur. But the project sponsor is the one that is setting that direction, providing the funding. There are some projects, though, where the project is done directly on behalf of of a customer. For example, the best good example of this would be where a contractor is building a new home or a new house on behalf of an individual or a customer, the person who is receiving the house. In that instance, the customer is both the customer and the project sponsor at that point, because they are providing the funding to be done to build that house. So there are some projects where the project and sponsor and customer reside in the same role, the same person or people. And in other projects, the project sponsor and the customer are two different entities. Key concept in understanding project management is the idea of project constraints. Now, early on when project management was being developed, there was recognition that there are three main constraints referred to as the triple constraints, and they consist of scope, time, and cost. Scope being what is required by the project, what is the uh, output to be produced. The time is when the project is needed by. What is the output? What is the output required by? So that's considered the time, and the cost is the overall budget that is required or that is available for the project. And these, the reason why their constraints are important is that these often interact with each other. In that the more scope we want, the longer it's going to take potentially, and the more cost it will take. If the cost, for example, so that's where the scope increases. If the cost or the budget is reduced, oftentimes it might mean we can do less, so the scope is also reduced, and we may require us to take more time to do it. And similarly, if the schedule or the time deadline is moved up, we might need to increase our budget to pay for overtime, and we might not be able to provide as much scope. So these are linked together. Any changes in one constraint affects the other. Potentially affects the other two, which is why it's shown as a triangle with lines between them, because they can affect each other. Over time, additional constraints were identified. So three additional constraints. One was quality, which is similar, is very kind of similar to scope, but different. Scope defines what the project will produce. Quality is how well will it perform. So again, changes in the desired level of quality can affect each of the other constraints because of the additional time and effort and focus that's indicated or required on quality. Resources is the fifth constraint, in that the availability of resources in terms of either people resources or material or equipment can often be limited, and therefore this availability of resources can affect the other constraints in terms of how much can be provided, in terms of scope, when the work can be done, the budget of how much it will cost, as well as the quality. And then finally, the sixth constraint is the level of risk that is tolerated, that may be tolerated by the organization. And again, each of the other five constraints will affect that risk amount. So these six constraints are something that project managers and project teams need to be aware of and manage throughout the project. Let's look at an example, as it's sometimes easier to see the impact of constraints through an example. So let's say in this instance, you are working on a project with 5 team members, and you're near the start of the project, and you have a challenging amount of work to complete. So that's the scope. You have a challenging but achievable budget that you need to meet. That's the cost. You have a due date that you feel is challenging but doable. You have a desired performance level, which is the quality. And you have the desire for few or no problems. That's been expressed by the project sponsor. So that's the risk constraint. And as well, the 5 team members is the resource constraint that you are operating within. So at this point, we are somewhat in equilibrium. On this imaginary project, you're looking at the project and saying, okay, with those 5 team members, those requirements, those constraints are doable but challenging. Now, let's see what happens if one of them change. And this is any of them in real life, any of them or all of them could change um, at once. But in this controlled example, as the project is about to begin, your team is reduced by one team member. So you have one team member, they quit, they're sick, something, and you can't replace them. So in this hypothetical example, you don't have another team member that you could get in time. Let's assume that to be true. So then what is the likely effect on each of the other 5 constraints? So what's the effect on the scope, the time, the cost, the quality, or the risk? Now, it's important to say here that this does not mean it is absolutely going to happen, is that teams will manage this and try to minimize the effect and so on. So this is not an exercise in fate, but it's an exercise in direction. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So for scope, if you have one less team member, so instead of having a team of 5, you have a team of 4. Now, what is the likely effect on the scope? Like all things being equal, and you're trying as hard, you're going to be as efficient as you possibly can, and so on. But if that's all maxed out, the effect will be directionally that we can deliver less scope, assuming that we want it at the same cost, the same level of quality, and the same uh, desire for low risk, right? So if you freeze those other 4, your scope will tend to decrease, right? That's what constraints tell you. Okay, so let's redo this and say, okay, our project sponsor comes to us and says, no, I don't want to decrease the scope. So I want the scope to stay the same. What's going to be the effect on the time or the schedule, the due date? So if we're going to try to uh, have with one less team member, we don't want to decrease the scope, we don't want to increase the budget, and we don't want to affect the quality or risk. What happens to the schedule? Well, directionally, it will take us longer. That will be what the pressure will be, is that it'll take us longer to do it because you have less people, right? And you can't pay them overtime or have them work longer days or bring in, a contract employee or outsource something. You can't because you can't affect the budget and so on. So it's going to likely take longer, or that's the pressure that will be on. Okay, let's reset things and say, no, the project sponsor says, no, I don't want to decrease the scope. Are no change to the deadline and quality and risk stays the same. What's the effect on the budget? Well, in that situation, the budget will tend to increase. Why? Well, you only have 4 team members trying to do the work of 5 to provide the same level of scope as we originally said. It's probably going to be overtime. We're going to have to pay time and a half or increase wages. Our team members might start to get a little tired because they're working, say, 12-hour days or something like that. So mistakes can be made and so on. Things become less efficient, which is an upward pressure on the budget or the cost. Okay, let's reset it one more or 2 more times. We're going to do it. Reset to say, nope, project sponsor says, want the same scope, same deadline, no increase in budget. What happens to the quality? What could happen to the quality if the team lets it? Well, the quality could decrease. So the team starts to cut corners, starts to reduce the amount of verification that is done, puts less focus on the quality, which could cause the end result could be a decrease in the quality. That's where the quality constraint will start to be affected. Now, finally, if we reset everything back, what would be the effect on the risk? Well, hopefully it will become fairly obvious that our risk level goes up. That if we're really taking chances, if we're really rushing, we're trying to do maybe a new innovative approach that's never been tried before, we're going to roll the dice. It'll increase the risk potential, the possibility of something going wrong. And this is what project managers do for a great deal of the project, is to manage these constraints. So key idea, the 6 project constraints are scope, time, cost, quality, resources, and risk. And these are things that are managed. Now, this course is primarily focused on projects and project management, but it's useful to understand that within organizations, projects often do not exist completely on their own. They're not isolated things. They're often within other work that is being done within an ecosystem of projects. And this brings into the idea of the concept of programs. A program is defined as uh, a group of projects that are related in some way, that have, for example, a common business objective. And for that reason, it's often useful to group them together, to view them as interrelated projects that are all being performed for a common purpose or business objective. So that's a program. This allows for things like coordinating decisions. I know that the approach, the direction of one project could affect the others because they're all working towards the same business objective. They can potentially coordinate their schedules, and they can coordinate resources. For example, resources may move from one project to the other. Programs are led by a program manager. You can think of a program manager as sometimes kind of thought of as a senior or a super project manager, because they direct the project manager of each project within the program. They have the oversight of the entire program, which consists of many sub projects within it. So that's the concept of a program. Portfolios, on the other hand, is something that also exists within organizations. And let's just step back for a moment before we would define it and just provide some context. There is often a large number of potential projects that may be performed within an organization over a period of time. There's lots and lots of ideas, lots of strategies, lots going on. But organizations, no matter how large they are, ultimately have limited resources and budgets and so on, just like projects do. So they can't do everything all at once. So it's important for them to prioritize those potential projects and ideas. So as part of portfolio management, a number of projects are selected in order to achieve the company's strategic objectives. So from the great list of potential projects, a sub-list is created, and that is a portfolio. So this collection of projects is called a project portfolio. And the process of managing the portfolio is portfolio management and is performed by a portfolio manager. This is a very senior role within organizations. This type of decision making is done at the very highest levels of normally of senior management, so is a senior role. So key idea, portfolios are the project initiatives selected by an organization to perform in order to achieve the strategic objectives of the organization. At this point, this is our second video within our ongoing case study, and we're now going to see the formation of the program, and we're going to see the portfolio management in action. So let's watch this.
Casey Serador signs into the video meeting. It is 8:55 a.m. and almost time for the monthly senior management strategy meeting to begin. Casey's senior management team, the heads of each division within Deco Productions, attend the meeting. After a review of the company strategy and a discussion of Casey's recent interview on a cable business news special, the agenda turns to the selection of the next major company initiative. There are 3 possibilities. 1. An update to Deco Productions' suite of video camera software that has been recently requested by one of Deco Productions' key customers. 2. The creation of a completely new service that would allow DecoCam customers to upload pictures to a system that would automatically create physical books, such as yearbooks or vacation albums. 3. An update to the DecoCam application that would introduce the photo assistant feature. Each initiative is presented by a different executive who outlines both the strategic benefits and the likely costs to be incurred. Jackson Woodhouse, Vice President, Customer Support, presents the first option. Most of the discussion revolves around the strategic importance of the customer and the likelihood that they could be lost to one of Deco Productions' competitors if the project is not completed. Catherine Bianchi, Vice President, Product Development, presents the second option. Concerns are raised that other companies already provide the proposed functionality and that it doesn't differentiate Deco Productions in any significant way. Arun Singh, Vice President, Mobile Products Distribution, presents the third option. The possible development of the photo assistant feature generates a great deal of discussion. While the feature is bold and unique, the costs are also projected to be high. If the project fails, it would cause a significant hit to the company's bottom line. After a period of discussion, the decision becomes clear. Casey summarizes the discussion by confirming that the DecoCam version 4 project containing the photo assistant application will be starting soon. As part of the discussion, a goal for DecoCam version 4 is defined, a 5% increase in the mobile camera software market share. The executive team then shifts its focus to how best to organize this initiative. After a further period of discussion, the DecoCam version 4 program is created, consisting of the following projects: DecoCam version 4 development, installation, technical writing, and product launch. Each member of the management team considers how this new program impacts their area of responsibility. Arun Singh looks at the list of projects. The DecoCam version 4 product launch project will be performed within his department. He makes a mental note to get a project manager assigned to this project as soon as possible.
Okay, so during that case study update, we saw a simplified version of portfolio management underway. Deco Productions senior managers considered the following potential initiatives: an update to the company's video software, an update to create photo books, and an update to the DecoCam, referred in its new feature being the photo assistant. And in the end, the photo assistant option is selected. Now, during portfolio management in organizations, there can be many more organizations and there can be various approaches to prioritize and categorize the potential initiatives, which is beyond the scope of this course and textbook. This is just a quick introduction to it. We then saw the creation of a number of projects and the insertion of them into a program. For example, so in this case, 4 different projects were seen as needing to start. The software development project, work to perform the installation, that's the installation project, some technical writing that would need to be done, and the product launch of the new photo assistant. This course will follow the 4th. So throughout the remainder of the course and in this section, we will be looking at the product launch. A note about the Project Management Institute and the PMBOK guide and its relation to this text and course. The textbook and course is consistent with the PMBOK guide 6th edition, as it is process-based and is useful to those new to project management. So you can review it in the textbook, and you can also. It's also useful to become familiar with the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, which presents a holistic approach to project management by providing a set of guiding values and beliefs. You can review the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition, 12 project management principles in chapter 1. You can also review the 7th edition's 8 project performance domains in chapter 1 as well. So the key terminology that was introduced in this chapter. So for more information of the definitions of each of these chapters, please see the key terminology section in chapter 1 of the textbook. And finally, a few references for graphics that were used in this video. Thanks for watching.